Hello, and welcome to the Coach Right podcast, where we explore how to turn coaching expertise into published pages. I'm your host, Helen O'Neill, portfolio career specialist, accredited future of work coach, author and creator of Coach Right 90, the writing programme specifically designed for coaches. You can get the episode show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachright.co.uk. It's time for the next chapter. Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of the Coach Right podcast. I'm your host, Helen O'Neill, recording this on Friday the 26th of September 2025. Today I'm joined by Sarah Manley, author of The Quiet Catalyst, who shares her experience of leaving the corporate world and finding inspiration on a retreat. Having trained as a coach, she decided to launch her practice and her book at the same time, as you do. What comes through loud and clear in our conversation is that we do not need to be loud in order to be clear or to succeed, and that leveraging quiet strengths doesn't mean you have to do things alone. Sarah opted to work with a hybrid publisher for her book, and we discuss how that service works, along with the importance of taking a long-term view to marketing. And marketing has been front of mind for me this past fortnight. As I work towards completing my 5th manuscript, it's time to level up the author side of my business, and to do that, it's time to get my head around advertising. I had the opportunity to attend an event being co-hosted by the Alliance of Independent Authors, or ALLI, and Amazon. I've been a member of ALLI since very early on in my career, and very much like the guardians of the coaching industry are the EMCC and the ICF and the Association for Coaching, the Alliance of Independent Authors stands for ethics and quality in the independent publishing space. It's very much a community built on knowledge share and enabling all ships to rise. So off I went to Amazon's office in central London, along with around 60 or so other authors. I went in with a beginner's mindset and was pleasantly surprised by how much of the foundational work I'd already put in place, ensuring all my books were claimed and optimised in terms of metadata. Now, that's not to say there isn't work to do. My author page could definitely do with a refresh, for example, but now I have a good baseline to start exploring advertising on the platform. And it almost goes without saying that although I've come away with a to-do list of very valuable tasks, as is often the case with this sort of event, it was the connections with peers that was most valuable. Another thing that's happened this week was that I received confirmation from the British Library about the legal deposit that I'd made for my mystery fiction title, The Murder at Kendrick Manor, which is published under my pen name, Jodie Darby. In case you're not familiar with what that is, the legal deposit requirement has been in place since 1662. It's intended to preserve and catalogue a national archive of print publication. And what that means is that if you publish anything in the UK and Ireland, you are required by law to provide a copy to the British Library. I'd forgotten all about the submission I made shortly after my book was published back in 2023. And the delay in response has been due to the deposit service being severely impacted by a cyber attack that took place that year and that they're still working to recover from. That said, it's worth taking note of these obligations that aren't so widely talked about. On the coaching side of things, I've attended a thought-provoking session with the EMCC Career Specialist Interest Group on sustainability, thinking about how coaching can support individuals and sectors that focus on this important topic. One of the key takeaways for me was how careers with a sustainability focus are often vocational in nature and can really align with someone's values. Sadly, they can also be less well paid than some of the other jobs and sectors. I've worked with clients facing this challenge in a few different guises, sometimes looking to add higher paid consultancy work to a third sector career they're passionate about, or sometimes looking to add voluntary NED or trustee work in a corporate executive career. There's reflection to be had on why and whether some jobs pay more than others, but it sparked a conversation around how portfolio careers can support the financial and societal or environmental contribution goals that clients can often bring. And the other update from me is that I've had a little holiday. I'd set myself a business goal at the beginning of the year and promised myself that if I achieved it, I'd visit Versailles. It's a place I've been fascinated by for ages, and I really wanted to explore the palace, the grounds and the town. It's also a while since I've been on a solo trip, and it was time to do something just for me. I took the Eurostar from London to Paris, walked through the city and took in the sights before getting the local train out of town. I spent the weekend exploring the palace and gardens, wandering around the park, and then returning via a Monday morning stroll down the Seine. I walked a lot. I saw a lot. I met loads of interesting people, and I came back renewed. It was a much needed reminder that to rest and get a change of scene really does do wonders for our energy and our creativity. In today's conversation, Sarah and I talk about how she found a creative spark on a retreat. Maybe something to think about, and how we need to keep filling our creative well. And here's the show. Welcome to the Coach Right podcast. My guest today is Sarah Manley. Sarah is an ICF accredited career coach for introverts, helping them unlock their quiet strengths and succeed in achieving in their careers. She is the author of The Quiet Catalyst, an introvert's guide to thriving in your career. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Oh, thank you, Helen. Really lovely to join you.
I'm really happy to have you here. So let's start by telling us a bit more about you, your practice and your path to publication.
Sure. So where to start sometimes with these stories, because there was never a clear starting point of when I decided to do all of this. If I'm honest, it just happened quite organically. So I guess to start, to explain, I had a 20-year corporate career. I was working in some big international healthcare organisations, and I loved so much of what I did. I really loved it. But there were points in that career where I found things really hard. I was feeling like a square peg in a round hole quite often. You know, sitting in those big meeting rooms, workshops, those big brainstorming sessions as a marketeer, lots of high energy, very vibrant, bold characters. And I was quite like a quiet, reserved person. And I would try and join in to all this buzz and so on, but it was exhausting and it just wasn't me. And it was kind of okay when I was more junior because you're still going away and doing a lot of your doing by yourself. But as I got more senior and took on my first director role, I'd moved countries as well. I thought, oh my gosh, I have to be always on, all the time, full on, leading from the front, joining these big meetings. And I was going to go off a cliff in terms of burnout at one point, I'm quite sure. And then I read this book called Quiet by Susan Cain. So this would be around 2016, 2017. A colleague actually bought it for me as a Christmas present. And this was like a chicken soup for my soul, reading this book. I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody gets it. That it's okay to be quiet. It's okay to be you. You can be mega impactful, bring mega value. You don't have to keep masking your quietness, pretending to be somebody you're not, to try and achieve things on somebody else's terms. So the next part of my career felt a lot better. There was still a lot of learnings of how to grow in my career, how to bring out the best in myself and others, but it was so much more authentic and so much more energizing as a result. And then fast forward another 10 years, something like that, and the opportunity came up for redundancy. And as I said, I loved a lot of my work, but I'd been travelling the world for 20 odd years, which was incredible. But I was ready to put down my suitcase. I'd say it that way. It's a lot of being away from home. So I took the opportunity of redundancy and I had no clue what I was going to do next. I just knew that I needed a rest. And then I think the book came tapping on my shoulder. Before I even knew what it was saying to me, it was tapping on my shoulder. I did what I thought you should do in your early 40s when you have free time. I went off on this retreat. Brilliant retreat run by a lady called Claire Winter. And it was just a few days in a yurt in Wales, walking, writing and yoga. So 3 of my favourite things.
Yeah, sounds like heaven to me.
Super nice. Weather was gorgeous, brilliant food, lovely people. And out of that, I came away with this stack of Post-it notes, and it was almost like a start of a download of this needs to be written. That's honestly how it felt at the time. And the first concept was my big sister at work. That's the very first thing I wrote down. And I think the idea of forming was who I wish I'd had in my earlier career, in my 20s, early 30s, who I wish I'd had to steer, to guide, to have as a role model, to help me with some of the things I was struggling with. And then it went in a drawer, because you get home, it's like, I'm not going to do that. And meanwhile, I'd started actually training as a coach. So even before I left my corporate job, I'd started training with Optimus Coach Academy, because although I was busy, I was a little bit bored. And this is typical Sarah, of like, what's the next thing I can do and explore and be interested in? So I was receiving a lot of coaching whilst being trained as a coach. And I had a brilliant peer coach, wonderful. And she said to me at one point, the thing is, Sarah, you do know that this idea needs to be a book, don't you? Oh, no, yeah, I do know. But now you've said it, it's got to be a thing now. You've put that out there. But, it was a joy. Just like I explained from the retreat, that it was this download moment of it just wouldn't stop coming out, is really how it went. So those first Post-it notes were July, I think. I got serious about writing in September. And before Christmas, the manuscript went to the publisher. Amazing. So, yeah, huge pivot from that 20-year corporate career. The book really led the rest of the journey of what was coming next, I think. And these days, so, the book has been out there for about a year. My coaching business launched at the same time. So a huge pivot, but so much joy, fun, not easy along the way. I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, great experience.
Absolutely. And you're right, we will get into that. But first, let's talk about so you've alluded to sort of the high level timeline of going from stack of Post-it notes to publisher. How did you actually get the words on the page?
So I actually worked with an organisation called The Published Expert. Mm-hmm. A lady called Shah Wasmond runs this. What I needed help with really was how to format or start to put some structure behind the ideas that were just scribbled on random bits of paper in random notebooks when it hit me. And I realised actually there's quite an enormity in going from scrappy bits of paper to something that a publisher would take seriously. So I worked with the Published Expert. I think they said 12 weeks or 16 weeks from idea to book, something like that was their promise. But honestly, it was so helpful to have not only some hints and tips about writing, and I've always loved writing. Even as a little kid, I would write stories for the younger ones at school. So age 7, I was writing books for the 5-year-olds. Oh, not very good, I'm sure. But so I always had an ability to write, but I needed some hints and tips for how to actually make this a business book. Mm-hmm. And also some discipline to get it written. Yeah. So through that course, I met some brilliant book writing buddies who I'm still in touch with. We still sort of cheerleaders for each other, help each other out. But the number one thing that I found so helpful was to make a star chart, like a kid would do to reward myself. So I printed off like an Excel or template thing from Canva maybe. And so I'd write each day, these are the times I'm going to write, like 2 hours a day. And then when I'd done it, I give myself a little gold star. And it really worked.
Who doesn't love a sticker?
It really works. It really works. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And I think that's also quite interesting from a numbers perspective. So a lot of times when people are looking at writing a book and you sort of go, you know, realistically, you can write a book in 3 months. People go, oh, no, that's false promise. But actually, if you break it down into 1,500, 2,000 words a day, which is what, three or four pages, suddenly that becomes much more manageable. So a little bit like when we're coaching and we're breaking down those big goals into those bite-sized chunks, it's sort of interesting that methodology worked for you in your writing process too.
It's doable. I mean, I was fortunate because that's what I was doing. That was my focus. I had book writing buddies who were getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do it.
Yeah.
You know, so I was fortunate that I had the time, the headspace to go and do that. And I also used the Pomodoro technique to make sure I moved, actually, because I'm the sort of writer who will plan to sit for half an hour and then 5 hours later I'm still writing and I haven't moved. So physically it wasn't a good idea. So just doing that timer. So I would do 25 minutes writing, 5 minutes move, like just a little dance break. I used to like, actually, a little tune, little dance break, because it shakes up your energy. You've got something different to put into the next bit. But yeah, those sorts of things I think are great just to find out about and experiment with. Different things work for different people. So I don't struggle with focus. That's something I'm very good at, sitting and focusing. But needed a bit the camaraderie to help you with, this is hard, isn't it? Yeah, it is, but keep going. Yeah. That was mega helpful.
Amazing. And then how did you go from that first draft to published manuscript?
So I worked with a hybrid publisher, Rethink Press. So I had a conversation with them probably around November time to share the idea of what I was working on, and it was liked. When the manuscript went in before Christmas, we had a review stage, so they read it through to say, is this ready enough or not? The path could have gone two different ways at that point. So they could offer some coaching to really help refine and reshape the book if needed. Fortunately, that wasn't the case for me. And we really went into final copy editing, doing the cover together, everything else. So it was a fairly straightforward process in those weeks over Christmas. And I have to say, it was a really nice deadline. End of the year, it's done. So that in the spring, it was ready for launch.
Yeah, nice. And you launched your coaching practice around the same time that your book was live as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
So how did that unusual. Sort of come together, converge?
Yeah, I think it's unusual, actually. I think many people have been running their coaching business and or creating content, and then they use that to build the book. It's a very sensible way to do it in hindsight. Whereas, as I explained, the book just was coming out, so I couldn't really stop it in some ways. And it made sense to me to launch the whole thing as a package of this is who I am as the Quiet Catalyst. Here is the book. Here are the services. But yeah, I don't think that's very typical, and I don't know if I'd recommend it. It was a lot of hard work looking back, trying to do everything at the same time. Setting up a business, launching a website, creating a brand, writing a book, starting content through LinkedIn, etc., making new connections, recruiting clients. It was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot. Yeah.
I can imagine. And I sort of wonder, though, that a lot of the time who we coach is very closely aligned to us almost helping an earlier version of us. And so as you've been sharing your story, it's almost like you've had these lived experiences in the business world. Then you've had this kind of creative experience where you've processed and kind of left the ladder down really for the next person. And then you've kind of built your services from that. What messages in your book are kind of the core messages for your potential readers and clients?
Yeah. I think it all starts with it's okay to be you. That's the foundation of it. Building from self-awareness, self-understanding, really valuing your strengths. Quiet strengths are so often overlooked in favour of the bigger, louder, more gregarious, more obvious things. So we really start with who am I and why am I amazing? And I think that's a great foundation for coaching very often.
Yeah.
But we also look very practically at what are some of the things that introverts struggle with. by, introverts in the end, it's about where you get your energy from. You get your energy from quiet solo time rather than big, loud, busy environments with lots of people. But that has a knock-on effect to how we show up at work, the kind of feedback we receive, how that impacts our confidence. You just need to be louder. You just need to speak up more. You just need to be more visible. Oh my gosh, these are things like wounds to introverts that leave scars. So we work through a lot on confidence and self-belief of there's a good reason why you feel like this and you're not alone. A lot of people really feel like it's just me, I'm the odd one out, as I did back then as well. So a lot of work, confidence, self-belief, how we can work together to make these things not only feel doable, but even feel energizing. Imagine that getting from a point of, I hate presentations, I do not want to stand up, this is awful, I'd rather the ground swallowed me up, to I'm actually quite looking forward to sharing my expertise and experience and answering some questions. Huge shifts. Leadership is the other key space that the book talks about a lot, and we talk about a lot in coaching, where often introverts find themselves in roles where they're deep experts. They're really knowledgeable, they love the depth of topics. And because of their success in that space, they get promoted and they get asked to lead a team and suddenly go, oh my gosh, this is very different. And many people arrive with this perception that leadership has to be from the front of the stage, giving the rallying cry, being the ultimate sunshine cheerleader. And people are like, I can't do that. And I don't want to do that. So there's a clear message again, like it's okay to be you. You don't have to lead that way. There are many different ways of leading successfully just by being your brilliant self. And the more you try and emulate others, the more you try and shift who you are, the more exhausted you're going to get. And the less able to lead yourself and others you're going to be able to do. So yeah, some big work in there about reframing what it is to be successful in the corporate world, what it is to be a good leader. That is really eye-opening for people, and it's again, joy seems to be the word of the day when I talk about this work. A joy to help people without all that struggle that I went through as well, without all that struggle, to get to a place of like, oh, this feels so much better. I enjoy my work more, but also I have more energy for outside of work. Instead of getting home and like slamming the door like, oh my God, I don't want to leave the house, nose diving on the sofa, binging Netflix all the time, just trying to recharge anyway. Actually, I've got energy to go and enjoy my life. So yeah, some really cool experiences that I've been able to have with people.
Yeah, and important messages for everyone, actually. That energy management piece, that importance of rest and knowing what you need as an individual, I think is really important reminder for everybody. So thank you. You alluded to the highs and lows of the writing experience. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. And actually it probably links to what we were just describing about the whole introvert piece.
Yeah.
When I'm alone and writing and focused, it's a genuine joy. This idea of flow, and flow states, that I can't put it into words. The feeling of that experience was unbelievable. And I hope to have it again at some point. I'm afraid to start writing another book, in fact, in case it doesn't feel like that again. But then you had to launch it to the world and share it with people. Oh, this was terrifying. And I'd shared it with a few friends along the way, and people that I knew would stroke me and say, oh, it's very lovely, Sarah, it's very lovely. But I hadn't been daring enough to share it before it was published with people that I didn't know or that I thought might say difficult things, other than the publisher, who had obviously given it a critical eye. So probably 2-3 days before launch, I remember a very specific moment in the kitchen going, can I pull the plug? I'm going to have to email the publisher and tell them to stop because this is a terrible idea. What if people hate it? And I'll ruin my whole reputation. And blah, 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 blah. Of course, none of those things happened. It was all fine and lovely, and it launched really well, and it was successful, and people have had a great reaction to it. But you still get those gremlins in the system all the time. This, I I don't think it's imposter syndrome. I'm never quite sure what that word means sometimes. But it's more a case of then I'll see other books, similar topics, or, other work that coaches are doing in the introversion space. And like, oh, that's better than me. Oh, that's definitely, they've got a good point there. I could have put that in my book. I didn't put it in. Mine mustn't be as good. All those sorts of gremlins still creep in, I guess very human. But I remember as I was writing, or I might have been in the publishing stage, I had a call with a brilliant coach, a guy called Pete Mosley. And he also writes on the topic of quiet. He doesn't talk about introversion, he talks about quiet on purpose. And he said to me, the thing is, Sarah, you'll find that your book is never finished. At some point, you just have to press go and put it out into the world. Some people will love it. Some people will not love it. Some people might say not nice things, but not many. But it will never be ready, but you just have to take the plunge, go for it. And somebody else gave me another piece of advice around, the thing is, there might be somebody out there waiting that really needs your book right now. You don't know them. They don't know it's coming. But if you keep holding it back and holding it back, you're going to miss them. And they need it. And these sorts of things actually really help of when there are those moments during the writing, during the publication and afterwards, and still now putting content out on LinkedIn, being like, is this really going anywhere? Does it mean anything? Just remembering there is probably younger me out there somewhere, or even older me, I don't know, out there somewhere, who is just going to read that today and go, thank you, that helped. So that always keeps me going, keeps me motivated.
Yeah. And those are the people that you never know that you've reached sometimes too. They're not the people that like your posts. They're not the people that leave reviews. But you might bump into them one day and they're like, oh yeah, I read your book and it did X, Y, and Z for me. And otherwise you never would have known that had that kind of impact. And that's quite, I always think sort of using the word gift, but it is a gift to be able to help people in that kind of way. For sure.
Absolutely. And it is curious that it does happen, as you say. I was at a conference end of last year. Oh, I recognise you. Quiet Catalyst. Is that you? Yes. Oh, I read your book. And yeah, as you say, they had an email. It was just a completely random thing. I think having slightly big hair helps that people recognise me sometimes. But yeah, that absolutely happens. And there is nothing I am more grateful for than when you do get an email or a review or something like that that just says, this has helped me in some way. Then again, all the tears, stress, anxious moments, wobbles, everything else goes out the window, because that's what it was always for, to help one person. That's what I always kept in mind. Help one person, you've done your job.
Absolutely. And what did you learn throughout the whole process that surprised you?
That surprised me? The work is only getting started when you've written the book. That's the truth. Sorry to people who are listening, who are thinking about writing and thinking, well, this is the hard bit. My experience, at least, was, as I said, I loved the writing process. I like writing. So that bit for me wasn't the hard bit. The hard bit now is keeping it going and keeping it alive. Constantly talking about it, bringing out content from the book in different formats, whether that's social media, webinars, etc., giving talks. That takes me a lot of energy as well. Perhaps, again, being the introvert, because it's the more connective piece. I really thought the book is published. There is a whole world out there of marketing and PR and. So lots of people trying to sell you lots of different things, lots of options on the table of how to go about it. So there is cost involved in that I hadn't really, and this is great, I'm a marketeer by background, so I should have thought about this. But, there's cost involved in that, there's time involved in that, effort involved. So yeah, it surprised me how much there was still to do post-publication. And I also surprised me just how much persistence that would take as well.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point, Sarah. Funnily enough, I know we were talking just before we started recording about when we listen to podcasts. And I was listening to a podcast this morning that was talking about post-publication work. And I think a lot of people think once your book is on the platforms, then that's you done, and people will buy your book. And then after a few months, they might have a launch peak, and then suddenly they're surprised that they haven't had any royalties or no sales have come through. But actually, it is showing up on a regular basis. So, what have you found that's effective from a marketing perspective?
Podcasts, definitely podcasts. I've had both clients and book sales from podcasts. People saying, I've heard you on this and I'm very interested, and it goes from there. I've done some PR work with a PR agency, and again, I think it brings some credibility. I can't directly say this has driven these sales. There was one article in Stylist that I got from working with a PR agency, which is a very nice piece. But again, it's very hard to track. The way that I get my numbers, I only get it on a 6-month basis. So I can't see cause and effect. And even then, the numbers aren't so massive that it's obviously correlated. There's no obvious causation. But I think it's about community again. So there are people who've really felt something from my book, either because it's relevant for them or other coaches, it's felt relevant for their clients. And so there are some people who say, I talk to you about your book all the time. Mm-hmm. Any clients that I'm like, oh, you must get Sarah's book, you must have a look at her stuff. So whilst writing can be a bit solo, it can be a bit lonely even for some people. I mentioned my book writing buddies before. That's mega helpful. But also now, post-publication, having that community of people who will give you ideas as well, link you with other people, bring opportunities is super helpful. Super helpful.
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me that no matter what niche people are in, from a coaching perspective, from an author perspective, from a corporate perspective, the importance of community is just paramount to anything that we do within our careers.
Hugely. And then the other thing, so the Business Book Awards. So there are lots of awards that you can enter, all kinds of different ones. I'm not the expert in awards, but I did enter the National Business Book Awards this year, so I am shortlisted for those.
Congratulations.
So fingers crossed for September in the business self-development category. I think there's 8 of us in the finalists list. So I'm very curious to see what that brings as well in terms of opportunities. And again, it's one of those tricky things as a first-time author of knowing how much time, money, effort to invest behind publicising that beyond what I'm already doing myself. Versus, do you go big bang all out for those things, or do you just kind of keep doing what I'm doing? Newsletters, LinkedIn, sharing, talking about it. Yeah, so I'm curious to see what impact that could have, either as a finalist or, who knows, a winner. Someone's got to win, so why not me? We'll see. So you just got to try these things. It's all an experiment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of going down the route of, there's obviously quite a lot of information, misinformation. You've learned a lot of lessons along the way. What myth around either coaching or the writing process would you be keen to dispel?
Yeah, I think I'd watch out for the quick fixes and the golden promises. LinkedIn is an interesting marketplace for new coaches and for aspiring authors. I've never been so popular as I was when I was saying, I'm launching as a coach and I'm writing a book. My inbox was so full from a variety of people, some wonderful human beings and some less so perhaps. So I think the watch out is really think about, what do you want? What do you really want? And if you're a coach, work with another coach to figure it out. What do I want? What's important? What do I just not know and need some independent help to understand? Because the people who are selling you things are going to tell you what they want you to think. So, some independent help is very useful in those sorts of things. It's easy to get sucked into, as I said, these golden promises of you can make these 10K months within, your first hour
15
of
minutes. Yeah.
it's nonsense. And well, no, it doesn't matter. You can easily get sucked into these sorts of things. I was about to go off on a complete tangent.
Oh, you're very welcome. If there's a soapbox there, I'm getting up with you.
Okay, then without sharing names, but I remember having a call with one such golden promise provider to say, let's have a call. I'll share with you how you can make these 10K months. I don't believe it, but I'm interested to have a call because people keep telling me it's possible, so let me know. And when you scratch the surface, you're like, well, are you making 10K months? No. Oh. So which of your clients actually are? Oh, I can't disclose those things. Okay, so probably none then. There's a lot of hype and a lot of fluff that's just not true. And I think the same might be there for some of the publishing. I've seen it to a lesser extent, but again, it's about just being clear. What do you want? What's important? What do I not know? Who can I trust to help me fill in those gaps? And not getting sucked into if I just invest in this, this will unlock the next thing. If I just invest in this course, this scheme, this whatever, it will make everything okay. Because I'm not sure that's the case. I think even, if you have a huge chunk of money to put behind your publishing, think about what you want to spend on the publishing itself, the pre-marketing, the post-marketing, make a budget for that and stick to it. Because it's easy to go over that and then, it's the next thing. Oh, I didn't think of that. That's the next thing. So I've definitely seen people who've then gone, oh my gosh, I've spent way more than I thought. I've loved doing it, but I've spent way more than I budgeted and I'm still not where I really wanted to be. So yeah, just manage those sorts of things ahead of time.
Really great advice. I quite often say to people, you can spend time or money when it comes to writing and publishing a book. And some people, they would rather spend the time and learn how to do the things themselves and to build up their expertise. And that's absolutely fine. And some people will have a bit more money to spend and will outsource certain sections of that process. And in any and all of those routes are fine as long as you're going into them as a conscious choice instead of, I have to buy this thing in order to da. And it's like any industry, isn't it? It's that you don't know what you don't know until you start getting into it. But fundamentally, the number one thing that anyone has to do if they're going to write a book is sit down and write the book.
Yes, it's quite important.
Yes.
You can't publish an empty book. No.
Absolutely.
That's called a notebook.
Yes. I think Amazon has rules about those sorts of things.
Yes, I think they do. Yeah.
So other than your own, what book recommendation do you have for us?
Well, I have to talk about Susan Cain's book, Quiet. I mentioned that before. It's now probably more than 10 years old, I think, but still a big go-to resource for me. Absolutely. The other book that I love, and it's always on my bookshelf, it's probably back there if I had a look, is Matt Abraham's book. So Matt Abraham has a podcast and a book which is called, and I always get it the wrong way round, it is Think Faster, Talk Smarter. That's it. And Matt is a Harvard professor, really smart guy. But he's an introvert too. He talks about when he was at elementary school, he would always get called out on the register first as Abraham A. Okay. So he learned to be able to think faster, talk smarter from a young age, even though he didn't love speaking up. It was just building that muscle and practicing all the time. So his book is full of brilliant things, from you need to give an impromptu speech. Ugh, the awful thing for an
That
introvert
is.
to have to do. Just like, how do we calm our nervous system? How do we use the resources and the strengths that we've got to formulate something? How do we structure it? So that's just one example of many, many things that he's brought from his lived experience, knowing that it's not just easy, for how to go about doing all of these sorts of things where you need to talk in front of audiences, you need to present, network, etc. So yeah, super nice book.
Loads of really good advice in there, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your path to publication. Let's finish by telling listeners where people can find you, your services and your books online.
Yeah, great, thank you. No, and thank you for the conversation. It's been absolutely lovely. So yeah, you can find me with my website, thequietcatalyst.com. Also on LinkedIn, I'm usually about there somewhere, so you'll find me the Sarah Manley. And book you can find on Amazon.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you again, Helen. Really loved the conversation.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for joining me today. You can get the show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachwrite.co.uk. Remember to subscribe and leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. Your words can make a difference. A review can too. If you'd like to connect, find me on LinkedIn, O'Neill Helen, that's O'Neill, O'Neill, or on Instagram at Helen O'Neill Coaching. I'll see you for the next chapter of Coach Write.